Hello, ladies and gentlemen. This is Michael, aka Victor. Hopefully, you can see and hear me well. I'm going to talk about this high level, but I wanted to do a talk about race. And as you can tell, I am a black man, so I have a different experience of race, especially being in America, where race is a big part of racism is still here. The truth of the matter is, there is really only one race, and I'm going to show you the truth in that. Now, a little background on me for those that didn't know. I am a guy that woke up in this matrix, and from a black history standpoint, we're in the before black history. Next month, they're going to be telling you about the first black to do this, that, and the other. But they only tell you a certain piece of the history, and we'll talk about that a little later. But I'm making history as well. I'm not the first one to wake up in the matrix, not the last one to wake up in the matrix. I'm using these terms now because it's what is in the mainstream. But this has been talked about for years. This is ancient stuff, and we're going back to rekindle some of the knowledge that our ancestors knew about. And when I say our ancestors, for the quote-unquote black people, I'm talking about the people that built the pyramids, that were scientists, were engineers, that did marvels of architecture and science and philosophy that were copied and fed back to us. We'll get into that later. So I am a scientist, and I say that because everything I'm telling you, you can prove to yourself. You don't have to take my word for anything, and I don't want you to take my word for anything. That's part of the problem we're in now, is faith and belief, to where you're accepting someone else's views. You need to prove this out for yourself. You need to research it yourself. In the age of information, ignorance is a choice. You got a smartphone in your hand that you're probably looking at this on, that you can Google and you can find out all of this stuff for yourself. So that's what it boils down to. But yeah, I'm a guy that woke up in the matrix and documented it. So yeah, I'm probably one of the few that's actually documented a spiritual awakening online. Probably the few that wants to have a reality show to show this in a broad scale, to show it's possible and just be an example. Not saying I'm anyone special, but just showing you that this is a matrix and you can wake up in it. Just like other people have said. And the matrix is this three-dimensional world that we live in, right? Plus time. That's why I say 4D. But you're a spirit. You're observing this matrix and observing time. And that spirit is connected to source, right? And that is not having to do anything with religion, right? So I just want to let you know I'm a scientist. And, Bill Nye, the science guy, he's a mechanical engineer. And that's my background, mechanical engineering. So I understand the scientific process, research, experimentation. And I've been experimenting with this matrix because this is something that's been hidden from us, but it's going to come to the light. In 2020, it's about having clear vision. So enough of that backstory. We're going to get into race. To me, race is extreme ignorance, right? It's just like saying a red car is better than a green car or a blue car or a yellow car. They all have the same functions, right? But if you're ignorant and you think one is better than the other and you don't have any proof of it, then you can believe or have faith in anything you want to. But when you look at the underlying science of it, we're all one race. And if you really want to go there, that one race started, and this is going to be a bad picture of Africa, it started in Africa. And you can look at the Smithsonian, you can Google this, and you can see that the modern human being originated in Africa. That's what the science says now, and migrated out from there. So we really are one race. So that's what the science says. Now, here in America, African American people, black people, whatever you want to call the colored people here, we were systematically kept ignorant. It was interesting. We went through what is called chattel slavery, where we were treated like property. They treated us like dogs, if you will. We didn't come here with the Bible. We didn't come here with any type of religion that we're practicing now and holding on so fervently to now. We didn't come here with those books. Those books were given to us by the same people that enslaved us. And I have a question to ask you. Do you think someone that would enslave you physically and do all of these things to you physically, that's in the history, would give you anything to free you spiritually? That's the question that you're going to have to answer. But we didn't come here with this religion. This religion was meant to keep us controlled and keep us down. And part of that religion was giving us a self-image other than ours to worship. And they really regurgitated some of the stuff that we already knew and fed it back to us. And that's more the history side, and I'm not going to get into that rabbit hole here, but there are things you can look at. One of the things I'll just tell you from an ancient religion standpoint is there's what is called Shitat Neter. And I know I'm pronouncing that wrong. But it's basically talking about the source, which we all are connected to and which is what we are at our core, and the fetters that keep you from experiencing that. And there's a lot of fetters, if you will. There's a lot of noise, if you will, that keeps you from experiencing that. And so vikterbang is victory over noise and getting back to our true selves. And that's what we're talking about, the human being, the being part of the human. So when you look at race, it's really ignorance. If you want to look at it, we're all different colors of black people, or we're all one race. I wouldn't even say it's a color, but color is used in America. And from a scientific standpoint, I'm not sure why they just don't come out and say, I mean, it's in the museums, it's in the books, it's in everything else. Just say, hey, racism is very stupid. We're all one race, we're all one humanity. When you zoom out of the earth, you don't see a black person, a white person, or a yellow person, you see the collective. Now, while I mentioned collective, there was one question that I had from a guy, and I'll just call him Chris for now. He had a question on seeing everyone as a collective. So, there are roughly 7.53 trillion people, no, billion people on Earth now, okay? So that's giving you an example. So there's 7.53 billion people on Earth. That's, like me and you. Now, each individual, each different, each has their own talents and all of this stuff. I'll give you an example. Multiply that number times 5,000. That's the amount of cells that you have in your body. So we are a collective, and as they say, as above, so below, in the holographic nature of the universe. Just look at your cells as a collective. You have cells that make up you. Whether or not this skin cell that I have knows about me or not doesn't change the fact that it is part of me and it is connected to me. This skin cell will never see the entirety of me, but it is part of me. Right? And that's a holographic kind of example of how we are connected to source. And each of these cells is connected to the same thing. They make up you. And they live, die, and they reproduce just like we do. But they're part of a collective. So our own body is proof of a collective organism, which we're connected to a larger connective organism, which I call all there is. You can call it source, but I just like to use all there is because it's not a guy in the sky with a beard or a girl in the sky with a beard. It's something that is all there is. How do you quantify that? It's really unquantifiable, but that's who we are and that's who we're connected to. So that's just an example of seeing us as a collective, because we really are. We really are one race. We really are humanity. Now, they keep us divided in everything because that's the only way that a small percentage can control a large percentage. Because just from a sheer number standpoint, it's not possible. And there is a day, and I don't give them any credit, and I don't talk about them very much, but there is a force that has done this. We didn't have the ability and the resources and the money and the power and the weapons to defend ourselves the way that this outside force did. And then they, used that to their advantage. And then they did it to us mentally to keep us policing ourselves. And that's kind of the world we live in now. Because they mess with our self-image. They taught us we were less than, and they use religion as part of that. Some people believe we were cursed to have dark skin from the Bible. I mean, dark skin is a blessing if you really look at it. I mean, you're close to the original color of the human being if you want to look at it that way. Not saying one is better than the other, because racism goes both ways. I know black races and I know white races, and they both are coming from a point of ignorance, in my opinion. And we can discuss this. And this is going to be part of a discussion that we're going to have every Saturday. I'm going to put it out on an event during Black History Month where we're just having questions. I'll ask you a question, you ask me a question. And I'll learn from this as well. I'm not claiming to be anybody special or a guru on any level. But I'm just someone who went backwards and wanted to deprogram myself and find out what was really true, because the things that I was being told didn't make sense. And when you look at the world and the way we're governing it and the way we're handling the resources that we have, there's a much better way that we can do it. So we are an example of a collective. 37.2 trillion cells, roughly, in each human being. Each one doing its part for the whole. Imagine a world like that where we're each individuals, where we're doing our part for the whole, to evolve, to learn, to live, and just to experience this beautiful planet that we have. All right. So when you look at the history of it, like I said, we didn't come here with these beliefs that we have. We didn't come here with this religion. We didn't come here with these things. When you go back further in history, you see they don't tell you the contributions that we had. There was a book that I have where it talks about philosophy, and they talk about the great philosophers. And they start with the Greek philosophers, and they don't tell you about the philosophers that they went and learned from, right? So this is stuff you have to find out yourself. A lot of the stuff that I learned, the most important things that I learned, I didn't learn in school. And that's why you're not going to see this really taught in school. This is going to be us teaching ourselves, you know. And if you go back to, again, ancient Kemet, know thyself. That's really what it's about, knowing thyself, okay? And self-image is a big part of that. I live in Tennessee, in the middle of the Bible Belt. And you can go to where Dr. King was assassinated, and you can see on the wall, we were fighting just to be equal as far as I am a man, right? And the people that created this country, you know, they can say what they want to, but making it great again, I'm not on board with that, because you have to show me when it was great. How do you discover a land that already had people in it? And then when you look at the founding fathers owning slaves, having slaves, and also the verbiage they use, all men were created equal, but you got slaves, right? So do you really believe that? Or, you know, are you practicing what you preach? That's part of what we have to understand. People can tell you one thing and do another. And people do not believe that they can use religion or these texts as a form of control. But again, you have to do your research. And religion is one of the main forms of control. Science is only going to deal with things that they can measure. They don't even care about the scientists. They don't even care about the scientists. They're only thinking about things that they can measure. Your consciousness cannot be measured, but your consciousness is what is experiencing all of this stuff, right? And so when you look at the non-physical side, they leave that to religion. You know, they don't touch that because you can't measure that. And then religion is mainly dealing with faith and beliefs, and it's based on other people's experience. Religion is a story about other people's experience. And it can just show you, there can be truth in that, but it's up to you to have your own experience, to have your own knowledge and experience to prove it to yourself. That's what it's all about. And when you do that, then you upgrade your own consciousness. And that's how we change the world, with each individual cell on this planet upgrading. And sometimes it takes examples to show people that it's possible. I use the Fosbury flop as an example. Again, I said I'm a guy that went backwards. You know, I tried to deprogram myself and say, what could I know, what would I believe if I didn't know anything? If I just came to the world without anybody programming me, what conclusions would I come to? And I use Fosbury as an example because in the high jump, everybody jumps backwards now, because from a scientific standpoint, it's a more efficient way to jump. Before, they used to jump forward. And Fosbury was the first one to jump backwards, and he perfected that, and he won the gold medal in the Olympics. And since then, everyone that's won that event does the Fosbury flop. But someone had to be first. Right? And I use Fosbury as an example too. As I was doing research on him and looking at his video, he happened to have a number on his number was 272. And it had a 27. I'm not sure if it was 272 or 727, but he did have a 27 in there. And that number comes up a lot for me as far as synchronicity with this matrix. That's just one example of how the matrix communicates. And I would imagine I'm one of the people that have the most documented cases of synchronicity. And I can show you examples. One example is after seeing Bad Boy and going to get some gas, and at the gas station it happened to be 2227, right? Yeah, it's just a number, and yeah, it may not mean anything per se, but when you see it all the time, and on this journey it's been a constant thing, it's just an example of synchronicity. And you have to be aware of it. The universe is trying to communicate. The universe wants you to upgrade because it wants to evolve. It wants to experience more than this stagnant thing that they've controlled us at. I mean, this world that we live in is illusory on one level, and the only way that they can control us is to get us to fight ourselves. And what I'm showing you and what I'm saying, I'm trying to break this down very simply. I use an apple as an example. You may have seen videos before where I cut the apple. You can cut the apple two ways. The world wants us to cut the apple this way, and it slices the apple this way, and it says we're all sixes, just for an example, you know. And I use the example of, is it a 6 or a 9? That's why I have the 6 and the 9 in here. The world wants us to think that we're sixes, and they slice us and get us divided and fighting each other, and that's the world we live in now. I'm saying if you cut the apple a different way, you can see that we're all stars inside. We all have divinity within us, and that is the truth. That is what all of these ancient religions are telling us, not religions, but teachings and philosophies are telling us. But it's just talking to you, have your own experience, and that's what it's about. But sometimes you have to show people that it's possible for them to do it. Just like Fosbury had to show, hey, you can jump higher if you jump backwards, and then now everybody else is doing it. So again, sometimes the first one is the one that kind of gets all the slack, but it opens the door. And it's about oneness, one race, we're one humanity, we're one earth, and the illusion is separation, right? When you realize that, just like our bodies, for example, a cancer is when part of you thinks it's separate from the rest of you. And the cancer is so concerned about growth that it will kill its host in itself eventually. That's the world we live in now. It's all about profit. It's all about growth. It's all about this stuff. And look at what we're doing to the planet and each other for something that doesn't even exist, right? Profit, all of these things are man-made. All of these systems that we got are man-made. So if we made those, then we can make something else. We program the matrix. The matrix is our doing, and we can change it at will if we wanted to. I mean, we can create a new reality, in my opinion, in 10 years. We can change everything. But it's going to take a lot of people to upgrade. And first step is showing them it's possible. Now, this is what I call disruptive innovation. What is disruptive innovation? So from a Black history standpoint, disruptive innovation is saying, I am a man. I mean, there was a point where we were considered 3/5 of a human, right? So that's disruptive innovation. Disruptive innovation is also saying, I don't have to sit in the back of the bus. I can sit in the front of the bus if I want to. All of these things are disruptive innovation because it goes against the norm. It takes people to go against the norm to think out of the box. And yeah, they're looked at as crazy and this, that, and the other in the beginning. And then when people start looking at it and seeing they're right and seeing that there's value to their points, then it starts getting adopted. You know, there's certain stages to things being accepted as true. And I want us to get on the fast track because time is of the essence to get through the whole noise of this is not true or this is true. It's either a 6 or a 9. And I'm saying we've just been cutting the apple the wrong way. So, yeah, race, ignorance, upgrading, the I and I concept, okay? I want to talk about this as well. So 1 times 1 equals 1. Times 1 equals 1. You can do that 37 trillion times and you'll still get 1, right? So when you look at the division, what is being divided? It's consciousness, it's source being divided, but it's still the same source, it's still the same consciousness. So this is the oneness, this is the I and I concept, and I know I'm just talking, it's something that you have to experience, but I'm just showing you an example of it, that it is possible, that 1 times 1 is equal to 1. Now 1 plus 1 is equal to 2, but there are exceptions. You take 1 cloud plus 1 cloud, put them together. Do you have 2 clouds? No, you got a bigger cloud. So when you separate this out, you're just separating the divinity into other aspects of itself to experience his own creation. That's what's going on now. And when I talk about matrix, there's this physical matrix, like waking up in a dream. Other people have talked about that as well. But the matrix shouldn't be too foreign to you because you create your own matrix when you go to sleep. In your dream world, you create a matrix for yourself. And you experience your own dreams in a reality that is not real because you're not out there, you're in here. Everything that happens in here, everything that you experience is being fed internally. So you have to go inside to have an experience and really see who you are, because that is the part of you that is immortal, that is the part of you that experiences time. Your consciousness experiences your whole life from the baby to where you are now, and did it age? That's a question for you. Or did it experience your body aging, right? So that source is the observer of everything, and it observes all, it's part of everything. Alrighty, I hope I didn't go too fast, but I'm trying to keep these short, but yeah. And you can look at some of the stuff as far as race, and it's interesting. And I tie race to religion because they give us these images of religious figures. And Jesus is one example. There's a National Geographic study that shows that they try to scientifically determine what Jesus looked like, and it didn't look like any of the images of Jesus that we normally see. They also did a study on Adam, the first man, and it didn't look like any of the Adams that you would see in these books. So science is showing certain things, but Science is also dogmatic and also have belief systems, and they also limit themselves from where they go. A true scientist should search for truth, which is what science is about, and shouldn't limit where they go. And they should want to be proved wrong, like I want to be proved wrong. And I'm putting this out there because the way we've been treated, and I used to wonder that, like why would they pass laws to prevent us from being able to read if they thought we were like dogs, if they thought we were chattel, we were like just property? Why pass laws so that your property is not able to read, is not able to learn? And I figured out, or my conclusion is part of that reason is because inside of us, inside of our DNA, inside of our ancestry is the same divinity and the same knowledge that created things like the pyramids and created civilizations that were enlightened and evolved and were able to do some incredible things that can barely be replicated now. So they tried to keep that down, but they can't keep that down. That comes out with like a diamond. Pressure and time makes a diamond. It's just aligning those atoms to become a diamond. You can take coal, pressure and time, you can make a diamond. One of the hardest substances on earth. What can cut a diamond other than a diamond, right? You can only cut a diamond with the diamond. That's how hard it is. So the people here, subjected with this pressure and time, were becoming diamonds, and they didn't want that. That's part of why they wanted to limit this knowledge, because they knew that this was within us. They saw this, they copied this. When you look at Washington, D.C., the layout, if we were really so stupid and dumb and blind and all of this stuff, then why put some of our symbols and some of our things that were in ancient Egypt in Washington? Why mimic someone that is ignorant and stupid and all of this stuff? So these are all questions that you can look at, you can research, and I've dug deep into some of these things, but I'm trying to keep this short, and I don't know how long this is. Maybe I did or didn't. But again, we're going to have some question and answer sessions and we can get into some details. But I know it looks like a mess, but there's a lot of stuff to go through because there's so much that's been hidden from us, but it's going to come out. And it's going to be turbulent. It's going to be difficult for people to understand. And you're going to be angry and you're going to be mad. I'm an angry black man as well, but what I've done is I've channeled my anger into the truth, into upgrading myself, into finding out how to better myself and not letting the outside forces really dictate how I feel. Because at the end of the day, it's your choice and how you feel. Yeah, you have external situations and circumstances, but it's your choice how you feel. Your own feelings are up to you if you let things get to you or not. So, and there's a whole lot that I'm not getting into that will eventually be gotten into. And that's part of the whole journey. And this is going to be an exciting time because as this gets more mainstream, and you're going to see people, they're going to try their best to try to keep it down, but it's not going to happen. Like Buddha said, 3 things cannot long be hidden: the sun, the moon, the truth. And the truth is coming out. And hopefully this helped on some level. And again, any questions, let me know, and we'll keep it moving. Peace.